I'm Maybe Burke and you're watching Makeup for Lost Time. This is my series for trans women and other people who feel like they missed a few classes when it came to learning about makeup. And today we're going to be talking about a base routine called underpainting. Now, underpainting is kind of like doing your base routine backwards. You're going to start with contours and highlights, and then we're going to blend it all together with our foundation. And so in order to do that, you're going to be using some darker colors and some lighter colors than you typically would, because then when you go over them with your foundation, they'll end up reflecting the colors you would typically use. So in this process, more so than usual, you're gonna look a little weird at first. Now I just have a little like mascara on and I just prepped my skin. I'm putting on some color corrector and then we'll dive on in. Underpainting is a technique that makeup artists have been using for years. I know there's a couple of makeup artists who really like popularized the technique, but I'm not really up on makeup history, so we're just gonna do it. So again, we're not gonna start with our foundation. We're gonna start with like the deepest brown that you have to use for contour. This is where contour and bronzer can really be used interchangeably because you want something that's going to be deep enough that when you go over it with your foundation, it's still going to show through. You can do this with lighter shades, but obviously the more drastic the colors are before you put on the foundation, the more likely they are to show up after you put on the foundation. And so if you've been here before, you know that I'm not going to draw anything directly on my face. I'm going to take this onto a brush and then start patting it in place. And I'm not going to worry a ton about blending this out perfectly. We're going to worry about the blend when we get to our final step, which is the foundation. We're just going to lay this in place, and it can look a little messy. It can be a little spotty, and that's okay. In fact, you don't want to blend this step too much, or you won't actually be underpainting. In terms of placement, I'm doing what I typically would do, and so you've seen what I do with placement of contour or bronzer. And then I am actually going to come in with a very pigmented blush on the back of my hand. I'm going to pick that up and stamp that in right over that line. Blush is an optional step, but also makeup is an optional step. I'm actually going to take this up into the eye area as well, just because that's what I'm feeling today. And this does look a little unhinged. We're gonna match it on the forehead. And it's good to look a little scary at this step. Last thing we're gonna do is come in with the lightest concealer you have. I can do this with a white, but I'm going to do it with this very light shade that I have. If you're bad at like color matching yourself and ended up with a concealer that is like far too light for you, it's actually really good for this technique. I'm gonna take that, and again, not super worried about blending just yet. We're just gonna stamp it in place right under the eyes and then down the center of the face. So this forehead, tip of the nose, Cupid's bow, and then our chin. And now you know I don't do a ton of nose contouring, but at this point I'm going to do a little bit. So I'm just going to take a little bit on this edge and a little bit on this edge, just to give our nose some structure. Because we're going over it, it's not a huge deal what it looks like. And then I'm just going to take whatever blush is left on this brush and tap that on the tip of the nose, and we'll see what it looks like. So this is where it looks like I'm really bad at makeup. But this is where you're going to take a light coverage foundation. You can also use like a tinted moisturizer for this. I'm going to get that nice and evenly coated on my brush, and I'm going to start working this in to the areas that I haven't covered at all before I start going over the highlights. And then we're going to work lightest to darkest. And so I'm going to work right over that highlight into the blush. And notice I'm dabbing here. I'm not dragging. I'm making sure not to move anything around. I'm tapping to blend out. And then once I've hit these highlight points, I can work out from there into the bronzer contour areas. On this, you'll notice I am tapping up towards my hairline so that if and when anything is moving with me, it's not moving towards the center of my face and where I don't want this darker pigment. I'm gonna tap to blend down my nose and tapping highlight into the eye area. And then we have a pretty solid blend. You can also use this moment to go over this with powders to also help lock this in place with longevity, but also to help bring out some of that color that got pushed back under the foundation. I'll make sure there's no creasing under my eyes and come in with some setting powder over all these highlight areas. And then I'm pretty happy with the structure the bronzer has given me, so I might just tap in a little blush because I feel like I lost a little bit of the color while I was blending in. And then we're set. Literally. I really like doing the underpainting when I'm not doing like a big eye look because I do like how it blends into my eyes. Obviously, I would retouch the mascara after this and do my lips and everything like that. But that's your really quick crash course on underpainting if you want to try it. Thanks for watching and follow along as we make up for lost time.